Okay, so we've talked about what's going to shift demand around. We've talked about what's going to shift supply around. So now we can come back to this question of how do we turn a real world event into something on our graph that we can work with. Right? So we got a method for thinking about changes. First, you think about the real world event and you ask, is this going to shift demand? Is this going to shift supply? Based on the determinants of supply and demand that we have, we should be able to figure this out. It could also affect both, right? Like I mentioned with the stock market. If expectations about something change in the future, that's going to affect both supplier behavior and consumer behavior. Once we have our idea of whether it's going to affect supply, demand, or both, we can think about what direction that shift is going to be in. Right? Do we expect that this shift is going to make supply go up or down? Is it going to make demand go up or down? Then you just draw those changes and you figure out what's going to happen to equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity. And then lastly, as a bonus, sometimes you stop here, sometimes you continue on. You can ask yourself who's going to be affected and why. Right? So when the price goes up, who's going to stop buying? Who's going to keep buying? What's going to change about how the stuff gets allocated? What's going to change about who's doing the producing? Right? So that's going to be part of it as well. So we gave the example of the party balloons, where the price of helium went way up, and the usage of helium started shifting away from party balloons and towards things like semiconductor manufacturing or MRIs. Right? So we can think, so what happened with the price of helium going up? Well, that's going to reduce supply, right, for the party balloon market because the costs of production for party balloons has gone up, right? So supply is going to go to the left. We would expect the price of party balloons to go up, the quantity to go down, which is exactly what we see, and we end up seeing, yeah, exactly that. That there's fewer party balloons around. That the consumers of helium are now shifting towards other markets. All right, let's take an example. Let's work through an example of a real world change. Let's talk about computers. So I'm going to talk about the first personal computer ever. So from 1948 to 1952, they made 180 of them, the IBM 610 auto point computer. It cost in 2013 about $500,000 to buy for one computer, or you can rent it for only $11,000 a month. Very first personal computer had about 2 kilobytes of memory, which if I doubt seriously that any of you have ever owned any computation device that has less than that. This is what it looked like. So what's going on here? So over here, we have a typewriter that you put little punch cards in, and you type, and it sort of punches holes in the cards that represent the letters that you go back. So then you pick up the card that's got your punched in code on it, you don't stack of cards, you carry them over physically, and you feed them into this little slot here one at a time. It goes through a bunch of like levers and pulleys and metal bits and goes chunk, 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 pokes holes through the little holes that you've poked in to read your code. It does its computation in the middle. You can sort of see these little canisters poking out as part of the machinery, some spinning discs in there. And then as it does your computation, and then it spits out a little tape. There's no screen on this thing, right? It just writes your results on tape. If you've ever seen like, an old ticker tape thing, right? Old movie on the stock market, right? They're reading out the results on a little tape like that. So that's what it is. $500,000. You could do some computations on it or something, I guess. So let's think about what's changing about computers, right? So we're going to ask, we're going to look at the changes in the computation market, the computing market from 1948 to now, which is a long period of time. But let's think about what's going to happen. So let's start by just looking at the supply side, right? We're going to leave the demand side for a minute. We'll come back to it. So let's ask ourselves, what are some things that have changed that would affect the supply of computers in the past 70 years? Plenty of options here. Supply changes. What's changed?
Production technologies with machines.
Yeah, production technologies. Right, we've just gotten a lot better at making computers, right? What else?
The parts have become cheaper.
Parts are cheaper. Yeah, when they made this, right, they had to basically, not by hand, but they had to specifically fabricate every different piece. They only made 180 computers in total. Now they make computers, by the thousands and thousands and thousands. They can standardize stuff, put it in a machine that makes 1 billion of those things, and then it's a lot cheaper.
More manufacturers and such.
Yeah, more manufacturers. So there's an increase in the number of suppliers in the manufacturing space, which should bring the price down, right? And so if you are making computers, that's going to drive down the costs of hiring those manufacturers. Yeah.
And it's more accessible.
More accessible. Yeah, more companies are able to enter the market of producing computers, right? It used to be that probably all the people in the world who would know how to make a computer probably worked at IBM or one of a very small list of other companies or universities. Now there's lots of people who know stuff about making computers, so they can all start their own companies if they feel like. What else? Anything else?
Materials used be under.
Material. So we can think about material prices going down, and then also you can more effectively make them into a computer. So you can get stuff cheaper, right? The price of metals going down. We've found cheaper. We can use plastic instead of metal. The number of parts that are required to make a computer is much less than it used to be, right? How much steel is in your computer? Not a whole lot, right? Maybe a pound, if any. It's probably all plastic. This is a giant hook of steel. Right, so we just don't need to buy that anymore to make our computer, and we're going to be more efficient about turning that into a computer. All right, so we have lots of different supply changes. Let's briefly go through and think about: are these different changes going to make supply shift to the right, increase, or is it going to shift to the left, decrease? I just did that opposite. It's going to shift to the right, decrease, or shift to the I'm turned around. Shift to the left, decrease. There we go. Shift to the right, increase. So production technologies improved. Is that going to be an increase in supply or decrease? Increase. How about parts getting cheaper? Increase. Okay. More manufacturers? Increase. All right. More accessible to join the market? Increase. And the materials cheap? Increase. So there's a pretty clear picture going on here. So we would expect that over the past 70 years, there's been a supply increase in computers. So whatever it was before, you would expect this is our old price, and drop there, and this is our old quantity, and increase. So plenty of things changed. So all this is going to lower the marginal cost of producing a computer, which is going to push the supply curve out. It's going to increase, which is exactly what happened. So today, a computer that is 4,000 times better. Well, today, I wrote this in like 2013. For a computer that's like 4,000 times better. Many other improvements, not just more memory, but just better. It costs about 1/1800th of the price, right? And they don't make 180 of them. They make thousands and millions and bazillions of them. So the prediction that the price is going to go down and that the quantity is going to go up, both of those things are true. However, we're not done, right? We've left out something very important, which is the demand side, right? You never want to just think about one side of the market. There's always two sides going on. So let's ask ourselves, what are some things that have changed about the demand for computers in the past 70 years?
There's more buyers.
More buyers, right? In 1950, who could even use a computer if you gave it to them for free? Not a lot of people, right? This thing didn't have a touch screen. You had to literally code anything you wanted it to do, right? It doesn't come with good software. It doesn't come with an operating system. You specifically need to program this specific computer, right? It's not like if you program today, you learn a language, and then you can use that language on a bunch of different computers. Not the case. You have to specifically program for the literal switches that are inside of this machine. But now you don't need all that stuff. You can use a computer pretty easily. So yeah, a lot more buyers would consider buying a computer at the right price. What else?
Change from just the operating device to the control device. More,
Yeah, so we got a lot more buyers. So it's just better, right? Better. quality, you get more out of the computer, you can do more things with it, right? You couldn't watch a video on that other machine, right? Anything else? What else? Yeah,
There's more uses for it.
many more uses. Right, all these things are going to increase our the marginal value that we get from our computer. Yeah.
The internet.
Internet, yeah. Right, totally valuable. You didn't have that before, yeah.
Some people depend on it.
Independence. Yep. Cheaper for us to buy. So yeah, that is true. That's not going to affect our demand, right? So that's going to be, it's going to be a lower price. It's going to increase the quantity demanded, but the demand itself is going to stay the same. Yes.
With like an increase in income affect that?
Absolutely. Nice one. I do this every time I do this. Nobody ever says income, but that's all. And I always have to back. Like, you forgot income. A good one.
I see some more markets like workplace and school.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We have more uses. Lots of different places we can use that computer. All right. So yeah, we got a good list here. I think the only thing that we left out was complementary and substitute goods, right? So anything, what's changed over the past 70 years about the price of things that you would use with a computer? Any thoughts about that? It's a little hard to think about, right? Electricity's gotten cheaper, for one. You need electricity to run a computer, that's gotten cheaper. How about substitutes? What's happened to the price of things that you would use instead of a computer?
Phone.
Phone, yeah. So what's that? So we phone price, which you can think about in two ways, right? So if you're using a computer instead of like, calling somebody on the phone, that's, I'm actually not sure how much that used to cost. I think it actually used to be a lot more expensive. I think phone calls are a lot cheaper because it used to be monopolized. Yeah, although if you're thinking about like a smartphone as an alternative to a computer, then that didn't even exist, right? So that's clearly a lot, cheaper than the infinity dollars it would cost you because it didn't exist back in 1950. So that can go two different ways, yeah. All right, one of the things that you use a computer instead of hiring people to do stuff for you, right? You no longer need, somebody to take dictation by hand because you can just talk into your phone or computer and it will translate it or it will write it down for you, right? There's a lot of things that we used to pay people to do that now just a computer will do. So labor's gotten a lot more expensive. So labor price increase. All right. So let's figure out what these things are going to do to demand. A lot of these are pretty straightforward. More buyers. Demand goes up or down. Yeah. Better quality. More uses. Internet. Dependence. Income goes up. Electricity gets cheaper. This was one that we said it goes both ways. Labor gets more expensive. So you don't want to hire people to do stuff now. Instead, you want to use a computer for it. The demand's going to go up. So again, we have a pretty clear message going on there. We would expect that the demand for computers is going to go up. So great. Okay. So we think, okay, we're going to have this big increase in demand for computers. So we draw supply, demand. We have a big old increase in demand. And we get that quantity is going to increase. Great. And we get that price is going to increase. Uh-oh. Price did not increase. Right? Price went way, 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 way down.